Racial healing is when blacks and whites and brown, we come together as one.
We've come a long way, but the struggle still continues.
The best thing to do is go see everybody you grew up with, heal each other.
Racial healing is this awareness of collective responsibility and showing up.
Community healing requires truth-telling about what's happened, an understanding of historical context.
When people are provided with the tools and resources, they thrive.
It's worth the fight for us, and change can happen.
Hey there, I'm Zinhle Essamuah. Over the past few weeks, we've been on a journey to understand what racial healing looks like across the country. We visited communities working to overcome the ongoing effects of systemic racism, segregation, climate injustice, economic inequity, and a lot more. Along the way, we've met some amazing people who are doing the work to change the narrative, starting in Buffalo, New York, with Malik Stubbs.
People are still hurt. We need more resources and more opportunities to help us grow from this experience.
In Battle Creek, Michigan, Kyron Herring.
I come in that space and I'm like, you will hear me out. You will see me and I will be more than acceptable.
In New Orleans, Louisiana, Abraham Parfait.
Are you rebuilt with the community you grew up with, your neighbors, your friends, your cousins, your brothers, your sisters and brothers.
And in Selma, Alabama, Jackie Smith.
I finally feel like we're about to cash in on our return.
Joining me now to share what's next for these communities are my colleagues, Claretta Bellamy and Maya Eaglin. Thank you both so much for being here. Claretta, I wanted to talk about Buffalo because I know this is a community that dealt with the top supermarket shooting. But in addition to that, they're dealing with food insecurity. And now in the midst of winter, they're dealing with the effects of a devastating snowstorm. So how is the community in East Buffalo healing and dealing with all of this?
So I met Malik, and he said that the snowstorm was worse than Tops closing down because a lot of the residents were trapped in their homes and really couldn't get access to food.
I am very heartbroken, to be honest, because people on the East Side, we went through a lot. And not to have the resources for the second time, it's more painful.
Despite that, Malik is very hopeful about the future. Through his program, Breaking Barriers, he plans on graduating 20 men who will be mentors and leaders in their community.
I love seeing the generational effects of healing. That's always incredibly encouraging. Maya, I know you spent a lot of time in Louisiana, and this is a community not just dealing with the effects of the climate crisis, but also environmental injustice. That can sound pretty grim, but I know that not all the people you talked to had bad news. Some of it was good news.
So one of the people we spoke to, Abraham Parfait, he is a member of the United Home Nation, and Hurricane Ida took everything from him. It took his house, it took some of his community members, and it took his local elementary school. The good news is the school board has voted to renovate and keep the elementary school in its current location.
I was happy to see at the very end, the last meeting, when they decided to let us have the school, was how the community came out. A lot of our senior community members, the ones that established our community and still holding up our community, was there, actually saw that it was something worth fighting for.
Abraham says a lot of people are excited about that. It's eased the concern of some parents in the area, and it's just another step closer of keeping that culture and community down on the bayou.
That's so encouraging, and I know you also visited Battle Creek. What was your biggest takeaway from that trip?
The biggest takeaway for me was the unity. All of the women I spoke to had a dedication to their own communities, but also helping each other. Kyron was one person that I think really stood out because she's so young, and yet she was so dedicated to not healing people in her generation, but people above and below.
I would love to see like more opportunities for us to go into the local schools and have circles for young groups or for classrooms. All the children are very aware of how race and class play in their day-to-day life.
So right now she's actually working on getting children involved as young as 5th grade to kind of engage and introduce them to the concept of these healing circles in hopes that they take those patterns throughout their upbringing.
Claretta, it's not lost on me that Selma is no stranger to U.S. history. Most of us are familiar with it. During your time there, though, was there anything that surprised you in your conversations with the people of Selma?
I was really surprised in Selma. It was my first time going there, and I really expected a hustling and bustling city with a lot of tourists, a lot of restaurants, and a lot of shops. And it was really the complete opposite. There's so much history and culture, but unfortunately, a lot of tourists treat it like a photo op. They go to the Edmund Pettus Bridge, take a picture, and leave. So I spoke to residents like Jackie Smith, who owns a coffee shop, and she's really working to get tourists to stay and spend their money in Selma.
Our goal is to show others in the community and external investors that there are people in and outside of Selma that's making major investments and that we see the light at the end of the tunnel.
This May, she plans on opening a second location at the foot of the Edmund Pettus Bridge to really increase foot traffic in the area.
That's really incredible. And you both have spent so much time in so many communities across the country. I wonder, what have you learned about racial healing? Claretta?
I would say that racial healing is an ongoing effort. It's a collective effort. It's not going to happen overnight, but it must include those not only impacted by racial violence, but those from outside the community who also want to help and make a change. But it's not impossible. Racial healing is happening right now.
I think it feels like a big ask, right? Racial healing. We think about all the terrible things that have happened in history and happening today. But if you can take it piece by piece, person by person, you can really have this beautiful domino effect of the people you can educate and teach and bring into this conversation in an inclusive way that will bring all of us in a better place tomorrow.
Thanks to both of you for sharing these stories with our viewers. And for you all, the journey does not stop here. The conversation continues on January 17th, so be sure to tune in. National Day of Racial Healing and MSNBC Town Hall live from New Orleans, January 17th, 10 p.m. Eastern. Telemundo will also stream a Spanish language town hall at 7 p.m. Eastern, and you can follow along on the journey with the hashtag Changing the Narrative. Tell us what racial healing looks like to you.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.